13. The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Franks, is recognized for the remainder of time until 10 p.m. as a designee of the Majority Leader. The gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
And I thank Congressman Griffin for the opportunity here. Mr. Speaker, I thank you here for yielding the time. Mr. Speaker, the tiny nation of Israel began in earnest more than 3,000 years ago. Since that time, the people of Israel have faced more heartaches, threats of annihilation, bigotry, torture, and genocide than any other people in the history of humanity. Yet even today, in 2013, against all odds and opposition, the noble people of Israel remain. And the peace of Israel continues to be the linchpin of peace for the entire world. Today, Israel faces another catastrophic challenge among the many in their long struggle throughout history that threatens to end their existence as a nation. The greatest challenge Israel faces today is the growing threat of a nuclear-armed Iran. This is a menace that also threatens the peace and security of the entire family of mankind. Mr. Speaker, Israel has been our truest friend and ally in the Middle East now for approximately 65 years. And during that entire time, it has faced many unthinkable threats from enemies who desire to see its absolute annihilation. Now, more than ever before, the United States of America and the nation of Israel must stand together against the threat of a nuclear Iran. And those who would see our two nations and all those we love and all those who love human freedom eradicated from the face of the earth. One of the most important ways America can send a signal to the world that there is no space between us and Israel is to transfer our embassy to an existing, newly constructed consulate in Jerusalem and once and for all make it clear that the United States officially and unequivocally recognizes Jerusalem as the undivided capital city of the State of Israel. This is something we should have done a long time ago, Mr. Speaker. However, there has never been a more important time to do it because the world today, including some of our most dangerous enemies, doubt America's resolve to stand with Israel. And the actions of the Obama administration would create such doubt in any reasonable person's mind. For instance, when it was announced that the Israeli government had completed one more step in the permit process for building houses in Jerusalem, the Obama administration openly rebuked Israel and demanded that they do several things by way of, quote, penance for building houses for its citizens. Now, Mr. Speaker, I cannot tell you how bewildering it is for me as an American congressman to hear our own American president expressing more outrage toward Israel for building homes in its own capital city than he has expressed toward a madman like Mahmoud Ahmadinejad for building nuclear weapons with which to threaten the peace and security of the entire world. Mr. Obama demanded that the permits be canceled, despite the fact that every prime minister of Israel has allowed them in their capital. Mr. Obama told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to make a, quote, substantial gesture toward the Palestinians and release Palestinian prisoners. Mr. Obama has made no such demands of the Palestinians, and the Palestinians have made no such concessions. In fact, Mr. Speaker, every concession that Israel has ever made for decades has been met and responded to by violence and terror. Nevertheless, President Obama is continuing to insist that Israel publicly state its willingness to negotiate the division of Jerusalem and the right of return for millions of descendants of Palestinian refugees to Israel. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, no president in our history has been more bent upon isolating our friends and emboldening our enemies as this president. And Mr. Speaker, it places Israel in a great conundrum. For if on the one hand they take military action to halt Iran's nuclear program, the world, including this administration, will openly condemn them, and they will face intense isolation and hostility from the international community. On the other hand, if they do not take action and they allow Iran to gain nuclear weapons, they face the real and imminent possibility that Iran will either directly or through its proxies unleash a nuclear hell on earth that will annihilate their tiny homeland. It is perilous beyond description for us all, Mr. Speaker, that the leader of the free world doesn't seem to understand the gravity of allowing Iranian regime and the government of Iran today to gain nuclear weapons capability. It is vital for those of us in Congress to make it clear that America's commitment to Israel remains steadfast and that Israel's enemy is America's enemy. Once again, Mr. Speaker, America should take a major effort and make a major statement to that effect by transferring our embassy to Israel's capital city, Jerusalem. This move would require nothing from American taxpayers. It could happen by selling the current embassy in Tel Aviv, and that could even bring a substantial upside to America financially. This is something that we need to do for the sake of making it clear to the world that we will stand by Israel. America has established bilateral relations with so many nations across the world, and in each case we have recognized their capital city. Yet when it has come to the state of Israel, our most critical and cherished ally on this earth, Israel's capital city of Jerusalem is the only one in the world which we have yet to recognize. Ironically, Mr. Speaker, it was America that was the first nation on earth to recognize Israel as a nation, a mere 11 minutes after Israel's declaration. President Harry Truman said, quote, "I had faith in Israel before it was established. I have faith in it now. I believe it has a glorious future before it, not just as another sovereign nation, but as an embodiment of the great ideals of human civilization," unquote. Mr. Speaker, if America now ignores the opportunity to be the first to fully recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital city, can we truly claim that we are Israel's nearest and dearest friend? And can we honestly say that we are fully committed to our own principles? The majority of Israel's citizens and leaders have yearned for their capital city's recognition by the people of the world, and moreover by the people of the United States, for so very long. Israel's capital city houses its government framework, including the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, the Supreme Court, the Bank of Israel, its diplomatic corps, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Prime Minister and President's office, and very significantly, Jerusalem surrounds many of Israel's most sacred remembrances, including the tombs of the fallen soldiers on Mount Herzl, as well as the symbol of the most insidious injustice ever endured by the Jewish people, Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum. Mr. Speaker, not so long ago, one of the members of this House said very eruditely and arrogantly, he said, "I don't take sides for or against Israel, and I don't take sides for or against Hezbollah." And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that that is more dangerous, that kind of moral equivalence, that kind of moral neutrality. It's more dangerous to humanity than terrorism itself. Ronald Reagan gave an address in 1983 when the world faced a similar threat in the growing strength and nuclear ambition of the Soviet Union. He stated, quote, "I urge you to beware the temptation to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong, good and evil," unquote. Mr. Speaker, we cannot remove ourselves from that struggle. Let us all be reminded that we have been here before. The free nations of the world once had opportunity to address the insidious rise of the Nazi ideology in its formative years, when it could have been dispatched without great cost. But they delayed, and the result was atomic bombs falling on cities, 50 million people dead worldwide, and the swastika shadow nearly plunging the planet into Sumerian darkness. You know, it is said that those who survived the Holocaust achieved their revenge through simply living. Rather than allowing their faith and their hopes to be crushed by the atrocities of the past, they chose instead to dry their tears and to look up and to begin building again. And indeed, they did build again. They built a future and a family and a community and a nation. And Mr. Speaker, the God of Jacob honored their courage. The threat of the Nazis is no more. And one day this threat of global jihad will be no more. Mr. Speaker, recognizing Jerusalem as the rightful capital of Israel is not solely an act of foreign attributes and powers. It is the noble act of courage and justice that comports with everything that America is. We have assisted the Jewish people in restoring their ancient state. We must now act and recognize her restored ancient city, Jerusalem. Together, we can ensure that Jerusalem continues to be a center for answered prayers and dreams come true. And I pray that the United States will be the first nation to officially and formally recognize Israel's capital city and to transfer our embassy to Jerusalem. This will undeniably affirm our commitment and our resolve on behalf of Israel, and we will be standing steadfastly on our own Declaration of Independence, as well, Mr. Speaker, as on the right side of history. With that, Mr. Speaker, I would just pray that the light of God's peace will shine down upon the streets of Jerusalem forever. And I yield back.
The gentleman yields back the remainder of his time.